Charlotte for a lifetime of hospitality.
I wrote for you, you delivered very well. This is a great honor for a lot of reasons, but there are three that are very much reasons for being here today and accepting this great honor. And the three things are, number one, Bill Swing. Who would ever say no to Bill? Secondly, that this cause, this organization is breathtaking in its scope, and Bill has started that. Thirdly, it's nice to be in the presence and in the same breath as the other honoree that's being honored this evening. He is my secretary. He's had some training. I tried to ask him to help me with my remarks, but he doesn't take dictation. Bill, as he said, has been there for me in personal losses in my family. He's been there for health problems. He's been there for joyous occasions, and most particularly, marriages. So, Bill, thank you very much for all that you do. When Bill came to see us last week and said that, this was, or he'd asked us before and was explained, I said, well, how does hospitality relate to this organization, to the United Religious Initiative? And he said, let me show you this. Here's our charter. We have all these principles, some 21 principles. And he said, look right here, number 6, it says, we give and we accept hospitality. So I guess that's, you do your work. And he gave me examples of when they talk about the doctrine, they have the papers they read, but when they really get together is when they have meals, when they eat and they drink together. And that is your hospitality that has grown into such an extraordinary organization and is doing so much for global peace and for understanding. So I guess it does relate to hospitality. People have asked me what protocol means. On some occasions I say, well, I just made it up. And I have. But what it really means to me is that you have great respect for your mankind, you have respect for their culture, and you give hospitality, and you take great care in giving hospitality. And so that is what protocol is. I have had some great teachers in my life, and starting with my parents. I'm from a very small town, as was related, and even small towns have problems and they gather together to solve them. Our house was always filled with people. People from the Chamber of Commerce, from the Town Council, from the JCs, from the Rotary Club, from the Lions Club, from the school. It was filled with people. I often thought that one of the reasons was that they liked my mother's fried chicken. There. And my father played the piano, and people sang around the piano, but they solved problems that even a small town has. On Sunday nights, people came to our house from the First Presbyterian Church, that's another church, called that. They, even though in those days there were problems within the church, but they came after the Sunday evening service, and they also liked my mother's chocolate cake. And so that was the time that people were brought together, and I got some early training. The next day, I went to the gymnasium and decorated for the other team that was coming in. And so I started out in that kind of way of hospitality, and I've come a long way, baby. I've had some other great teachers, and I've sat at some wonderful tables and decorated some places like the City Hall and the State Capitol. So I had some good training, but now I've had some other great teachers. Diane Feinstein was a great hostess. She was a good teacher, and we had a lot of people visiting us as heads of state that brought a great deal to San Francisco. In those days, there had to be a great Secretary of State, and there was a program that There was monies for people when they came to Washington. They wanted them to see another part of the United States, and there were monies to have those people come to those other cities. Most of those heads of states were very bright. They wanted to come to San Francisco. And when they arrived, there was a person who received them, and that was Dianne Feinstein. One of the guests that we had was the Queen of England, Her Royal Majesty. And I thought, I mean, heck, how do you take care of a queen? But I've had some experience in that too. So at any rate, she did come, and I read in the paper that Frank Sinatra and George Burns and a bunch of people in Los Angeles were in charge of her visit there. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, I've always had a lot of help and have gotten too much credit for the things that I've done because I surround myself with people who have expertise. So I called my pal, Steve Silver. I'm sure you know of him, the late Steve Silver of Beach Blanket Babylon. I said, hey babe, we've got a problem. And we've got to put on a show. So I said, we've done some research, and Her Royal Majesty loves showbiz. She likes show tunes. So Steve put together a show that had about 1,000 people in the show. There were bands, there were choirs, and there were professionals. He started the show with the Ascot scene from My Fair Lady. Then it went to the late Mary Martin, was a friend of ours, and she sang the Queen's favorite song, which was Getting to Know You. And that was a day of getting to know our friends from Great Britain. And then it went into, there's a guy named Tony Bennett, sang some song like, what is it, Oklahoma, I left my heart. And then the big hats came out. I hope most of you have seen Beach Blanket. If you haven't, you should. And the big hat came out with the San Francisco song, and then came a big hat that was the Big Ben hat. And it opened up and had a picture of the Queen, and had a picture of Prince Philip, and had a picture of the Queen Mother, and the headlines the next day in all the papers that were written and around said, and the Queen laughed out loud. So we had a ride. A few days later, I got a call from, what is his name, Mike Deaver in Reagan's office. As you know, he was a very personal assistant to the president. And he said, Charlotte, I want to call you because there is good news and there is bad news. And I said, he said, which do you want first? I said, oh, I know, I want the good news. He said, well, the good news is that the Queen went to the president's ranch in California. The good news is that she was entertained by all of his friends in Los Angeles, all the big, Hollywood stars and so forth. And the good news is that she had dinner with the president of the White House last night. And I said, well, you got to eat somewhere. Sounds good to me. And so, what's the bad news? He said, the Queen told the president that the highlight of her entire trip was San Francisco. Premier of China, there had not been any leadership, correct me if I'm wrong, Secretary, that had come to the United States. And his first stop was going to be San Francisco because he was coming from China. And so Washington was always a little scared about San Francisco. I think they still are. They were wonderful but wacky. And so they said, you've got to be really careful what you do because it sets a precedence for when the president goes to China. So, don't mess up. So I found that in protocol and in hospitality, sometimes you just have to use your instincts.